The hospital elevator wasn't supposed to stop on floor 4. Not anymore. Not after the incident. Yet, at 3:17 a.m., the security feed captured something impossible. The elevator doors slid open to a pitch-black hallway that hadn't been touched in 20 years, a floor officially sealed, welded shut, and condemned. And just before the camera burst into static, a woman in a torn patient gown appeared in the doorway, staring directly into the lens as if she knew someone was watching. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin was drained of life. When the cameras returned, she was gone. But the elevator kept moving on its own. They say the elevator still goes to floor 4. Even though floor 4 shouldn't exist, St. Andreas Hospital was the kind of place where the walls never slept. Machines hummed with a cold rhythm, nurses rushed through dim corridors, and the air always smelled faintly of antiseptic mixed with something darker, something old. People came here to survive, but not everyone left. Staff whispered stories during long night shifts, a patient who died twice, a surgeon who vanished in the middle of an operation, and an elevator that seemed to think for itself. But the most feared story was always the same, the truth behind floor 4. Officially, it was shut down after a fire. Unofficially, no one wanted to admit what really happened. Doors welded shut, records erased, whole rooms sealed like a tomb. And yet, the elevator still tried to go there. Sometimes, on stormy nights, it succeeded. That's where the story of Dr. Lena Rowe begins, a tired, rational night shift doctor who didn't believe in ghosts. Until the elevator stopped for her with no one inside, and a cold whisper drifted through the empty cabin, 4th floor. The hospital corridors were unusually quiet that night, yet something felt off. The elevator had begun behaving strangely, opening doors without calls, flickering lights. Faint whispers that seemed almost human. Dr. Lena. Rowe noticed it first, while walking to the supply room at 2 a.m. The elevator doors slid open to an empty cabin bathed in sickly yellow light. She paused, sensing an invisible presence, a weight in the air that pressed against her chest. The doors closed slowly, as if reluctant to let her leave. The next night, the same thing happened, and a nurse reported hearing someone call her name inside the elevator. Maintenance shrugged it off, blaming electrical faults, but even they avoided it during storms. Then the disappearances started. An elderly patient stepped in on the 3rd floor and vanished. Security footage showed nothing, just static, an empty elevator moving between floors as if guided by an unseen hand. Staff whispered about a woman in a hospital gown wandering inside at night, appearing only on monitors, never in the hallways. Reflections of ghostly figures were caught, briefly, on the metal walls. Lena tried to stay rational, but each night the corridors felt colder, the silence heavier. A whisper haunted her steps. 4th floor. Curiosity mingled with dread as Lena decided to investigate floor 4, officially sealed after a fire decades ago. The floor was supposed to be abandoned, but the doors, locked with chains and padlocks, radiated cold that seemed unnatural. Using bolt cutters from maintenance, Lena opened the doors. A cold gust pushed them inward, almost like a warning. Inside, the hallway was eerily untouched yet abandoned, peeling paint, overturned stretchers, and scattered, partially burned files. Among them, she found repeated records of Evelyn Marsh, detailing incidents erased from the system. An old photo showed Evelyn in a patient gown, smiling nervously, eyes wide with fear. Lena's flashlight flickered, and a soft, ragged breath came from the darkness. The floor itself felt alive, watching. Dust swirled as if pushed by invisible hands, and shadows danced across the walls, teasing the edges of her vision. The atmosphere was heavy, oppressive, as if the floor held its own memory of violence and despair. Evelyn's presence lingered in every corner, a ghost unwilling to leave, a story waiting to be told. Lena realized then that the floor wasn't just abandoned, it was a tomb of secrets deliberately hidden, a place where the past refused to die. Determined to uncover the truth, Lena sought out Arthur Hulley, a retired maintenance worker now confined to psychiatric care. He lived in a dim, silent room, rocking in his chair, eyes distant and haunted. When Lena mentioned Evelyn, he trembled, recalling the night she vanished. Evelyn had tried to report a senior doctor for misconduct, seeking Arthur's help to deliver evidence. They stepped into the elevator together, only for the lights to fail and the cabin to jerk violently. When power returned, Evelyn was gone. Authorities blamed a malfunction, but Arthur knew better. He spoke of shadows, unseen hands, and whispers in the shaft. Floor 4 was sealed, but Evelyn's presence persisted, reaching out to those still alive. Arthur warned Lena never to step into the elevator if it opened by itself. He spoke of unfinished justice and spirits unwilling to rest. Lena left shaken, carrying the weight of a story ignored for decades. She realized Evelyn hadn't died. By accident she had been silenced, and her presence lingered, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. One stormy night, Lena heard the elevator ding as she charted records. Its doors opened to emptiness, lights flickering ominously. A half-burned hospital bracelet lay inside, bearing the name Evelyn Marsh, floor 4. The doors slammed and reopened, refusing to let her leave. She stepped inside, compelled and terrified, as the cabin descended uncontrollably. Stopping abruptly at floor 4, the doors slid open to darkness. At the end of the hallway, a faint figure moved Evelyn. Lena froze. A whisper drifted through the cabin. "Help! Me!" She realized Evelyn sought justice, not company. A cold hand brushed her shoulder. Unseen force pressed close. Panique surged. Lena bolted, narrowly escaping the elevator as it slammed shut behind her. She understood now. The elevator wasn't haunted by malice alone. It was bound to the truth of what happened, carrying the unfinished story of Evelyn Marsh, seeking those willing to witness the horrors of a silenced life. Lena dug through archives, connecting the dots that led to Dr. Malcolm Ridge, a respected surgeon with a hidden history of misconduct. Evelyn had tried to report him. He had silenced her, using the elevator and sealed floor 4 to hide the crime. Confronting Ridge, Lena saw fear break his facade. The elevator dinged, lights flickered, temperature dropped. Unseen hands dragged him into the elevator, doors snapping shut. Only his blood-stained ID badge remained. The elevator descended into darkness, leaving no trace but the echo of justice served. Lena realized the hospital had become a vessel for truth, a bridge between the living and the silenced, with Evelyn finally claiming balance. She understood the place held both horror and memory, and some stories never truly ended, they simply waited for witnesses. The hospital never officially acknowledged what had happened. Dr. Malcolm Ridge had vanished from the night shift without explanation. Rumors whispered through the corridors he had resigned suddenly, transferred to another hospital, or suffered a breakdown, but no one dared speak the truth aloud. Those who worked late nights, the ones who had felt the elevator's cold breath on their necks and heard whispers behind closed doors, knew what had happened. Ridge was gone, taken by something that defied explanation. His office was emptied before dawn, his nameplate removed, his parking space left untouched. All traces of the man and his misdeeds were carefully erased, as though the hospital itself were trying to bury the past along with him. But St. Andreas had never been a place of true peace. Its walls remembered every secret, every scream, every silence left unacknowledged. Dr. Lena Rowe returned to her rounds, carrying the weight of Evelyn Marsh's story like a quiet, persistent heartbeat. She felt the cold shadows that lingered in hallways long after the sun had risen, the subtle chill in the elevator when no one else was around. Floor 4 remained sealed, its doors welded shut, yet Lena could feel its presence, patient and watchful. Sometimes, she imagined seeing a shadow flit past the metal walls or hearing a soft, almost hesitant whisper just out of reach. Evelyn had claimed her justice. But the hospital itself still held memories of what had occurred, memories that were restless, unwilling to be ignored. Lena had witnessed the elevator take a life, bend the rules of reality, and yet survive. She understood now that it wasn't the elevator that was haunted. It was the building itself, a vessel for those silenced, holding onto their stories, their anger, and their need to be remembered. Some nights, Lena would glance at the locked doors to floor 4, shiver at the thought of what lay beyond, and feel a strange sense of calm. Evelyn's presence, once urgent and pleading, had softened into something watchful, almost protective. The air seemed lighter, the silence less threatening, as though the floor's restless energy had found equilibrium. Lena knew the past would always linger here, that the hospital's walls would never fully release the memory of what had occurred. Yet she also knew she was now a witness, a keeper of truth in a place built to save lives but unwilling to fully acknowledge its own darkness. As she stepped out into the cool night air, she whispered a quiet promise she would not forget. Behind her, deep within the hospital, the faint sound of an elevator dinged a reminder that some floors stay sealed, some spirits remain restless, and some stories never truly end. Evelyn Marsh had found justice, but the memory of her life, her death, and the silence forced upon her would remain, waiting for those who dared to remember. And in the quiet hum of the building, in the shadows of its empty corridors, the elevator waited patiently. A bridge between the living and the echoes of the forgotten. Some stories are not finished. They are simply waiting for someone to witness them.